we have to play a la, it has to be the lowest la fingering we can play. All right, so yeah, so now go one, fork, no, yes. No. But now, she's used to opening. You know, she's used to dropping her jaw and her tongue. Now we don't want to do that. We want to keep the same beautiful embouchure that we have all the time, but play a low fingering so that the pitch is right, but the quality of the sound does not change.
그러니까 지금 그 음정이 원래 라, 하이, 라가 너무 높아가지고 여기를 너무 오픈시켰단 말이야. 그런데 지금 이거를 최대한 핑거링을 낮은 핑거링으로, 낮은 피치의 핑거링을 해서 같은 텐션으로 주법을 잡아주는 게 좋은 소리를 낼 수 있다고.
F, la. Yes. C sharp. Watch your finger. There we go. Her fingernails are too long. Okay, now think it's far better. Relax the shoulders. I'm going up, but not with the shoulders. And this was one thing I noticed from the beginning. She has a very pretty sound. She will have a much prettier sound if her embouchure is, if she works on it a little bit more. I'd like for you to, part of the problem, and this happens all the time, maybe it's because of the solo repertoire. When a clarinetist stands, we feel like we want to present the sound of the clarinet to the audience, so the bell comes out. A lot of the time, this is way too far for the instrument to come away from the body. It has to come in much closer. You should not change your position the way you sit as from when you stand.
그러니까 지금 그 클라리넷을 할 때 대부분 그 학생들이 솔로 곡을 하기 때문에 보통 서서 하잖아. 서서 하다 보니까 자꾸 소리를 앞으로 내려고 하다 보니까
Look already. So play for me. What if I asked you to pull the bell closer to your knees?
무릎 쪽으로 배를 더 가까이 하고 들어가.
Oh, okay. Now listen. Okay. It may seem a little smaller, right? It might seem a little smaller, but the quality of the center of the sound is undeniably better. Undeniably.
이해했어? 그러니까 지금 이렇게 무릎으로 이렇게 갔을 때는 소리가 조금 작게 들릴 수는 있지만 훨씬 더 코어가, 그러니까 센터가 더 꽉 차 있는 소리가 난다고 훨씬 다르다고.
She has great posture. Her posture is fantastic. She's very straight. I have horrible posture. Horrible. I apologize. My posture is not good. And don't play like me. Do as I say, don't do as I do. But when I play, I sit like this. Very lazy. I apologize. So, but I keep the clarinet here. The only time I pick up the clarinet is when I play low E or B. Fa maybe, right? Because I don't want it to go flat. The rest of the time here, the clarinet. So I'm used to staying in one position all the time, all the time. And I think what allows me to be more consistent and think about the music much more is that I know this is always the same, my air is always going, and there's no variation with my embouchure. I think the most difficult thing about the clarinet is embouchure and air support. The two most important things.
제일 중요한 게 주법하고 호흡.
If you have a great embouchure, you begin to realize that a great embouchure is not free. It's not open. It's not. It should have resistance. So I believe in cooperative resistance. I form a resistance in the embouchure, and I push through the embouchure with my air. Many people play the clarinet differently. Stop.
오케이. 그러니까 그 지금 많은 학생들이 그 너무 프리하게 그 이렇게 뭐 오픈이 됐다가 이렇게 이 많이 움직이고 하는데 이게 아주 잘 고정되어 있는 상태에서 호흡으로 밀어주는 그냥 여기는 많이 움직이지 않고 아예 그러니까 움직이지 않은 상태에서 불어줘야 된다라고 해서.
I'm not sick, so you will not get sick. But it's very important for me. I always try my students' instruments and their reeds and their mouthpieces to get an idea of how they make a sound. First thing I noticed is that the reed is completely waterlogged. She probably practiced a lot before I got here on this reed. So the reed is already on its way to the grave. It's dying. And she makes it sound very good because she has to relax her embouchure to make the reed vibrate. Reed preparation is one of the most important things you can do. First, embouchure, air support, reeds.
세 번째는 이제 그 리드. 방금 전에 얘기했던 주법하고 호흡. 그 다음에 리드가 되게 큰 영향을 준다.
There are many different ways to prepare reeds. I know my way, and I will share that with you. My way of preparing reeds is by sanding, sandpaper.
뭐야? 사포를 이용해서 리드를 만든다고 하시는 거예요.
만든다고요?
그러니까 간다고. 그러니까 밸런스 맞춰요.
You've probably seen these things, right? Van Doren? Do never use the sandpaper side, the grainy side. I only use the flat glass, okay? And I only use that to place the reeds on it. But the most important thing, very light sandpaper, 600 to 1800 sandpaper, very fine. And only this much pressure, very soft.
그러니까 제일 가는 거 사포 중에
600짜리.
No more. The first sanding before you ever play the reed. The first thing you do, you take the reed out of the box.
그러니까 새 리드를 사자마자 꺼내서 사포를 이렇게 해준다고. The new reed, right?
Brand new reed.
Brand new reed. 그러니까 새로 사자마자 이 사포로 작업을 하시는 거예요.
I'm sure I had something. Yeah. Okay. Here we go. Yeah, I use 5, but it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. What matters is it is important to pick a reed that's slightly harder than you normally play. That's why I use 5s. When I'm done with it, it's more like a 4.5. You know. So, but in wintertime, really it has to be a 5 because it's so dry that everything feels brittle.
더 건조하기 때문에 한 단계 더 높은 리드를 사용하시고. 그리고 자기가 생각했을 때 4, 5반이 맞다고 생각하면 5를 사서 조금 깎아가지고 아마 쓰시는 것 같아요.
So everyone can see us. This is not because I don't want to hear her play. I really want to hear her play more, and I'm sorry. But I think it's important. When I try someone's mouthpiece and I see that the reed is already waterlogged, the preparation is huge. So I cut them into very thin strips, basically the size a little bit wider than the reed. Take the corner, I go. In my mind, I already know how many strokes I'm doing as I move across the reed. Feel free to jump in at any time if you need to translate. Then I turn it over. I make sure that the tip is flush with the glass. I hold the back end out.
돌려서
Then I come through. I've done this so many years now that I will not chip the tip of the reed. but you will when you start. You're going to chip the reed. It's just you have to learn how to do it very carefully.
가까이 가서 봐도 돼.
Then I do the back.
다시 그 뒷부분, 두꺼운 부분 뒷부분도 좀 갈아주고 계시죠.
Okay? This is the most you will ever sand the reed, the very first time.
그다음에
The back. Remember, this is a piece of bamboo cane, right? That's been cut this way. It's a sponge. It's open pores. If I was to dip this in water and blow, bubbles would come out, air bubbles would come out all over the reed. So you want to preserve the life of the reed and the soul of the reed by sanding it and containing it within the reed.
그러니까 리드를 좀 오래 쓰기 위해서 그 리드를 좀 더 단단하게 만든 다음에 사용을 하면 더 오래 간다고 말씀하셨죠.
Now, I wet the reed, and I will only play for 5 to 10 seconds. That's all you have.
처음 불 때 한 5초에서 10초만 불겠다.
I guarantee you, it's already 10 times better than it was before I sanded it.
10배는 더 좋아졌을 거라고.
Try to only stay in the shallow low register. I'm sorry, I went to the clarinet for a second, but stay in the low register.
아, 낮은 음역대에서 먼저 불어주는 게 좋다고.
Then you should go through at least 2 boxes at one time. I let the reed dry. You can dry it this way, you can dry it that way. I don't find a very big difference. So I let the reed dry under a light, like a desk lamp, so that the water dries out quickly. So by the time I'm done with the second box of reeds, this one's ready to go again. I do the same thing.
두 박스를 다 뜯어서 이 작업을 하는데 하나를 불고 나서 이제 램프 같은 데다가 올려놓고 뭐 이쪽으로 올려놓든 이쪽으로 올려놓든 상관없다고 하시네. 근데 이렇게 해서 이제 두 박스가 다 끝난 상태면 맨 처음에 했던 리드가 다 마르고 또 준비가 된 상태. 오케이.
I used to use the reed knife a lot. You know, the reed knife.
칼, 리드 칼.
I hardly use it anymore. And the reason is, I don't like to take very much off of the reed. I want to use as much of the cane that's in the reed as possible. So what I do, I figure out the fibers of the cane. The closer the fibers are and the more even they are to the tip, this is a good reed.
그러니까 지금 이게 최대한 그 여기서부터 쭉 올라가는 결인 리드가 좋은 리드라고.
The only time, I'm sorry, the only time I will use a reed knife most of the time is either at the very bottom, on the sides, if it's very dirty and a lot of reed noise in the low register of the clarinet.
그러니까 지금 저음 음역대에서 되게 지지직거리거나 되게 힘든 소리가 났을 때 그 리드 칼로 여기 지금 요 부분만, 요 사이드 아래 중간 사이드 부분만 살짝 칼로 손을 보신다고.
And the only way you know which side to remove the cane from is by seeing which side is bigger. And I hold it up to the light and I watch the light shines on the rail and then there's a shadow on the back of the reed. That's how I can see how thick this reed is on this side. I take a mental picture and I turn the other side over and I do the same thing.
뒤에 그림자가 생기는데 그 그림자의 크기를 보고 어디 쪽이 더 두꺼운지를 판단하신다고.
Then I compare the two. The right side is thicker and thicker further down the rail than the left side.
그러니까 오른쪽이 지금 조금 더 왼쪽보다 두껍게 그 자리 잡고 있다고.
So as a result, I play the reed off the right side to give it a balance. And if you look at the fibers of the cane, they go this, I can't see. Okay. They're pretty straight, but you can see that the right side is thicker on towards the tip. Therefore, I take that part of the reed off of the mouthpiece, off of the window. It's like using a knife.
그러니까 무슨 얘기냐면 마우스피스가 이렇게 있잖아. 근데 이게 지금 오른쪽이 조금 더 두껍다고 했으니까 지금 이게 똑같은 밸런스를 줬을 때 살짝 이쪽으로 왼쪽으로 가서 이 오른쪽 부분이 조금 덜 닿게 한다.
As a result, it's as if I used the knife and then made it even again. So I play it, we say off center.
그러니까 그 중심을 살짝 이탈하는 거지. 그랬을 때 밸런스를 우리가 칼로 깎아서 밸런스를 맞추는 거랑 비슷한 효과를 낸다고.
So much off center that you can see I've marked the bottom of the reed that it goes off of the line here, that far.
그러니까 거기다 마크를 해놔서 어느 정도 벗어나야 되는지.
Oh yeah, sorry. So, okay, I marked the reed to go off center. This dark area goes off of the right side of the facing of the mouthpiece. So, instead of playing it even like this, or like that, feels a little small. I move it to the right so that more of the reed will vibrate. Okay? That saved me about 2 hours of reed work.
그 방법이 2시간 동안 리드를 고르는 시간을 단축했어.
You don't need to put smiley faces and little stars on yours, but I do that just for fun. It makes it more entertaining. So that's how I adjust reeds. Now, if the reed is not broken in, if the reed is very new, it's still going to be changing. That's why every time I resand a dry reed, I double the playing time. Next time will be 20 seconds. Next time 40 seconds. Next time a minute and whatever. 80 seconds.
아까 처음에 볼
Minute and
때는
20 seconds.
5초에서 10초 본다고 했잖아. 두 번째 볼 때는 그 2배. 그리고 세 번째 볼 때는 거기에 2배. 이렇게 그 시간을 점점 늘려나가는 거죠.
By the time you get to 15 minutes of playing time, you really are just using paper to sand. Not even sandpaper, just regular paper, right? You're basically trying to, the reed should, when it's wet, it should feel as soft as the bark, this part, when it's wet.
만약에 젖었을 때 되게 부드러워진다.
Her poor reed has never been sanded, so it's very rough on your lips. This is why I've only played one type of reed on many different types of mouthpieces. I believe that the reed, I am used to the way the reed feels on my lip more than the mouthpiece.
그러니까 리드의 그 감각이 그 마우스 여러 가지 마우스피스의 그런 리드보다 더 좋았다고. 그러니까 리드 하나를 좋게 골랐을 때 어떤 마우스피스에 놔도 자기한테 되게 맞았다고. 지금 이 리드로도 수많은 마우스피스로 테스트를 다 해봤다.
Is this a vendor? No? What is it? Oh, V12. That's it. Thank you. Okay. She uses V12. I would do the same thing. V12 actually is thicker at the tip. It's a much wider swoop. But you have to be very careful with how much you take off on a V12.
그러니까 V12는 그 팁이 조금 더 두껍다고. 그래서 그걸 어떻게 또 할지는
Very light. All the sandings. Not as much as I do, but even lighter. But your reeds will live a month to a month and a half longer. And I can always get at least 8 out of a box of 10 of performance reeds.
그러니까 10개 중에서 한 8개는 오케스트라에서 뭐 그 연주를 할 수 있는 리드가 나옵니다.
Okay, back to the music. But this is important. I wanted to share that with you because I think it applies to everyone. Now, you can play your high F. See if you can play your high F without the E flat key, and then it might feel better. See if it works. Can you just go?
이 플랫 키를 빼고 해도 괜찮을 것 같다고 한번 빼고 해요.
이 플랫.
파 할 때 이 플랫 키.
아 예.
Yeah,
손가락을 빼고.
try.
빼고.
You did it. I'm not going to argue. Yes, okay, that's in tune, and it sounded so much better. I think you can remember to pull the bell in. Here's what happens when you pull the bell in.
배를 만약에
The
당기면
clarinet should feel like it's going to fly out of your mouth. The only thing keeping it from doing that is your teeth, or if you play double lip, your lip. But it wants to fly out.
이렇게 하면은 뭔가 나갈 것 같은데 이빨로
But your embouchure is very good when you do that. Look, oh my God, see? Oh, go back. There we go. Don't worry, it's still so much better. I'm sorry, I love it.
낫게.
I mean, come on, listen to that, bravo. Okay, I can talk about music, I can talk about the quality of sound, I can talk about intonation, there's a million ways to talk about music, and then obviously I can bore you to death with reeds, but for her, the most important thing I want her to focus on is bringing the clarinet to you, maybe taking a slight bit more mouthpiece, and having that beautiful, I say it's like a banana. Your chin should go stretched down and out, like a curved banana.
그 턱이 이렇게 딱 잘 만들어져 있으면 좋은데 지금 너무 악기가 들려 있으니까 이것이 너무 방해가 된다는 거지.
Most of the time we think flat chin, flat, flat. And then sometimes people pull it back. And it happens all the time. The sound gets choked. But if you think of, yes, this part is flat, but this part comes out. I always say because I like the sound of the embouchure forming a perfect circle, the chin nice and round outward, but flat here and then round at the bottom.
아까 발음하신 그 발음이 그 자기는 되게 좋았던
Yes.
소리가.
It's weird, I know. It's a little strange. Okay, what also happens is because they pull the clarinet, then the arms come in more, right? But let your shoulders stay down. So it's hard.
좀더
You
내려가야
can push the clarinet from your thumb up, but not with your shoulders.
그러니까 이게 이렇게 당기면서 여기를 이 엄지로 살짝 당겨주지 어깨가 올라가지 말고.
I love it. It's great. And I know the reed I tried to play, right? So it's very, she's still making a really good sound, but it's starting to die because it's full of water, right? So it's very saturated.
그러니까 지금 리드가 이제 곧 죽기 일보 직전이라고.
As soon as she starts to do this procedure of polishing the reeds, drying them, polishing, drying, sanding, she will find that her reed is too light.
그러니까 이 작업을 만약에 이 리드로 하게 된다면 그 수호기가 이 리드가 정말 얇다고 느껴질 거예요.
So eventually what happens is you go to a slightly stronger reed,
좀 더 두꺼운 리드.
and eventually you'll find that the leather ligature, if you make really good reeds, the leather ligature doesn't help your sound.
그러니까 정말 좋은 그 리드를 골랐을 때는 그 가죽 조리개가 좋은 사운드를 만들어주지 않는다.
It feels good with the legato, right? We all love the legato.
레가토가 잘 되긴 하지만
But the best legato is with air.
정말 좋은 레가토는 호흡으로 해야 된다.
It's a lot of work, I know, I'm sorry. But this is good. I'm so impressed that you could change your embouchure so quickly.
빨리 이걸 바꿔서 너무 좋았다.
Let's hear articulation. Let's go from the beginning of the allegretto. Okay? That's all I need to hear. Because the embouchure is moving with every articulation, it should not move.
움직이지 않아야 되는데 지금 매번 아티큘레이션 할 때마다 움직인다.
Sorry, I do it differently. But Anyway, the most important thing that you must remember is play it slurred, completely slurred, with that beautiful embouchure you showed me before. Now don't look down to the music, head up. Yeah.
머리 올리고. 다 슬로.
Yeah, legato and pull the close. Ah, hello. There we go. Okay. She has a beautiful sound.
엄청 좋은 소리를 가지고 있대요.
If the clarinet comes out, the sound gets less beautiful.
올라가면 올라갈수록 악기가 소리가 안 좋아져요.
And where does the tongue go? When we speak,
우리가 얘기할
naturally,
때,
when we talk,
자연스럽게 얘기할 때
and you say syllables like ta, ta 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 ta, or the, hello, anything, thing, your tongue goes right from the back of the gum that touches the top of the tooth.
그러니까 지금
따따따따.
맨 위에
Not here.
이빨
Ta 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 ta.
그 이빨 위에 그 천장을 쳐야 되는 거예요. 타타타타타타.
Where the skin, the flesh touches the back of the tooth, that's where we articulate. Now the thing is, the tongue must be flat.
그러니까 혀는 이렇게 펴져 있어야 되는데.
The tongue must be flat, and actually when I articulate, I can feel the sides of my molars on the inside. So my tongue goes elevated, and I only articulate where I normally talk.
그러니까 이게 그러니까 텅잉을 할 때 그 자연스럽게 우리가 대화할 때 있잖아. 그러니까 방금 전에 타, 터, 뭐 the 뭐 이렇게 할 때 혀를 우리가 자연스럽게 사용을 하잖아. 그것처럼 우리가 말하는 것처럼 똑같이 텅잉을 하는 거야.
If I could take an X-ray
엑스레이 찍으면
of where the mouthpiece goes into the mouth
마우스피스를 넣는 걸 찍어보면
properly, you take a lot of mouthpiece in the mouth, and if the instrument is not out here but here, it goes very far up into the mouth.
만약에 이거를 이렇게 안 들고 이렇게 그 몸쪽으로 당기면은 꽤 입 안 깊이 마우스피스가 들어간대.
My lip is about here, very far down. If I play this way, I go here.
만약에 이렇게 들게 되면 입술이 올라간대. 아랫입술 대는 부분이.
And if I want to tongue naturally, my tongue will touch to the tip of the reed. If I'm like this. But if I do it like this, my tongue never goes above there.
그러니까 만약에 악기를 들었을 때는
Right
리드의
there.
팁 부분을 혀가 닿게 되는데
Yes.
자연스럽게 텅잉을 했을 때
But if
근데
you
악기를 이렇게 내렸을 때는
Natural.
절대로 이 부분을
Take a little bit more.
넘어서지 않는데 올라가지 않는데
아하.
혀가.
Now go. Okay, she's got it already. She's already got it. Okay, it's great. It's wonderful. I'm so happy. So now, one more time, you're going to play it slurred, but you're going to keep a little bit more mouthpiece than you're used to taking. There you go.
좀더 많이 올려.
Perfect. Now go do.
슬로로.
Great. Now tongue, legato tongue. Da 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 dee da. Thank you. Right? Now, when she plays a slightly harder reed, she can broaden her dynamics much more, but with a beautiful sound.
만약에 여기서 조금 더 두꺼운 리드를 사용하게 되면은 훨씬 더 풍부한 소리를 낼 수가 있어요.
Remember, when we get excited and we want to be passionate about something, don't forget your fundamentals. If you never shortchange, I don't know how you say that, never sacrifice the amount of air that you need, and you should always feel like you can never take enough air. You can never take enough air, even for a short phrase. I always practice.
그러니까
I look pregnant when I play, but I can't help it.
그러니까 조그만 그 프레이즈도 작게 호흡을 하지 말라.
Good. Now, again. One more time. Now. There. Yes. Right. Now we're going to tongue. Okay, here's what happens. You hear a little bit of a scoop, right? Whoa, 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 right? It's two things. The reed is too light for her. And so what she wants to do, the reed isn't going to help her right now.
지금 리드가 조금 얇은 게
Because
1번.
I can see her lip move when the bottom lip right here where it touches the reed is moving. Shouldn't. But it has to because the reed is too light.
왜냐면 너무 그러니까 리드가 얇기 때문에
Right.
움직일 수도 있대.
So if you were to squeeze right now and really squeeze the bottom lip into the reed,
줄여달래.
almost. So the other thing that I'm noticing is that her air column is wide.
아 지금 바람이 나가는 게 좀 넓게.
Let me take. I'm going to take it away. Watch. Let go.
뺄 거.
Let go. Thank you. Watch. Okay, so you're gonna put one hand here and one hand behind me, and you're going to squeeze me like an accordion.
아
She's going to put one hand on my stomach and one hand on my back and squeeze me like an accordion.
이렇게 손을 해서 이렇게
Very hard, okay?
이렇게 잡는데 눌러.
And she's not gonna. You're not gonna hurt me. Yeah, you feel right? Always utilizing your air as much as you possibly can. Now, that doesn't mean I'm always blowing like my brains out. I'm not doing that. But I know how to regulate the pressure of my air, and I use pressure all the time.
그러니까 모든 어떤 걸 하든 처음부터 끝까지 계속 똑같은 압력을 호흡의 압력을 주고 플레이를 하시는.
Can you try?